And it's my great pleasure to be able to introduce the Macaw Recovery Network to you. We have Dr. Sam Williams and Pamela Herrera will join us and talk about their incredible work in Costa Rica, saving parrots, and especially the great green macaw, of which there are less than 1,000 left in the world. And you'll learn about their multi-pronged approach to working with improving the breeding of the species, of preserving the trees where the species live, and then also working with the local communities to make it all happen. And so those of you who know Sam know that he's got a great sense of humor and is a real jokester, and especially he likes to tell cheese jokes. And an example might be, how do you get a koala to come out of a tree? You say, "Come on, bear." So it's a cheese joke. Yeah. So I'd like to counter to Sam and just say that I understand that he is actually he's writing a book now. It's a serious project that he's writing a book about cheese in the Middle East, and it's called Cheeses of Nazareth. So on that note, I'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Sam Williams.
Thank you so much. That's great. Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to be back and to be able to give you an update on all the adventures we've been having and the progress that our team have been making. And so I can't say how wonderful it is to be here in person again. It's really great. I live in the rainforest, and every morning I walk my dog, Pat. And every morning we see tons of wildlife. We have a lot of fun, and it's fair to say that Pat is pretty cute. And on this morning when I took the camera with me, we had the great fortune of seeing a laughing falcon. We don't see these guys very often. We hear them very often, but actually to see one was pretty cool. It's much more usual for us to see parrots. There's small parrots. They're found in flocks. We see them almost every day. There's Amazon parrots that fly overhead noisily. And then almost every day, we get to see scarlet macaws. It's not very often we get to see them as well as this. But the scarlet macaw is just this iconic bird. They're incredibly loud, so you can't miss them. And they're just unmistakable. And that makes them a wonderful flagship species for the ecosystem. Macaws are very, very popular, and they have been for centuries. This is a painting from the 1600s, and that is indeed a scarlet macaw there. And at this time, with that macaw, what we're looking at here is the world's most endangered nipple. Even today, in a music festival, there's a mural, not today, but in modern days, there's murals in a music festival. In the town where we work, there's a mural with macaws on the wall of a building. And in a beach town in Costa Rica, there's a 3-story high mural of a scarlet macaw. That's my Land Rover there to give you the sense of scale. And this is an incredible piece of art. You don't find that with other species, and I joked about, and Linda Tababek gave me some grief about saying, well, you don't find a 3-story painting of a possum, but macaws are incredibly charismatic and just captivating. And there's a lady here wearing a beautiful shirt with the macaws on it, and that really speaks to the incredible power that we can leverage with macaws. And I swear, Charlie and I have not coordinated our presentations, but what I'm going to tell you is actually a lot of things that Charlie mentioned. Pamela and I are not going to just talk about macaws today, which you might expect. It's so much more than that. When we protect macaws, we're protecting all the biodiversity that's found in the rainforest, this jungle. There's over 500 species of birds found right where the great green macaws are nesting. There's countless numbers of bugs and creepy crawlies and amphibians and even plants. In Costa Rica alone, there's 12,000 species of vascular plants. At Macaw Recovery Network, we do work with the birds, so we get hands-on, and we're trying to bring them back from the very edge of extinction. The great green macaw, like Charlie said, there's only about 1,000 of them left in the world. But there's no point doing that unless we're also working with the trees. This is a magnificent mountain almond tree. You see the Land Rover again doing a cameo, but you may not notice there's a climber in the tree to give you that sense of scale. They're an incredible tree. We have to protect these ancient trees to give the macaws somewhere to be. But there's no point doing that unless you're also safeguarding the future for the forest and the parrots by working with local communities. The great green macaw is our #1 species because they're incredibly endangered. And they are really great ambassadors for the forest. But they're also a little bit picky. They really need perfect conditions in order to thrive. So they're like our new king, King Charles. The scarlet macaw is beautiful and much sought after. So they're more like Duchess Kate. And the yellow-naped Amazon parrot, you'll notice, is not a macaw. They're incredibly charismatic, real goofballs, and they're a little bit edgy, but they're not really part of the family, so they're more like Prince Harry. Now, the great green macaw is just an amazing bird, and it's just, since I've last spoken in person, they've been uplisted to critically endangered. They're really on the edge of extinction. And the first thing we need to do is to know what we're working with. So we're doing census work, and we're counting the macaws. We go out with teams, and our team this year have launched a multi-country team. The macaw is found in 6 countries, and we've been managed to stimulate initiatives in 4 of those countries in our first year. So we're doing a range-wide count. We're working towards this range-wide count. And when Columbus arrived in the Caribbean in 1492, he described the parrots as so numerous that they darken the skies. Success to me is when we have macaws as a common sight across Costa Rica. When the macaws fly, it's incredible to see. We have these, this is from the count, this is a family of 3. This would be mum and dad and one of the offspring, the one offspring that they raised. And really, this symbolizes for me sort of the conservation that we need to do. Conservation is really simple when we talk about the birds. There's only 2 things you need to work on. You need the birds to have lots of babies, so you need productivity, and you need survival. You need all those babies and the adults to live a long time. When you have both of those things, and those things are increasing, you'll have an increasing population. We've been monitoring nests now, like this incredible nest in an ancient tree. A great green macaw is 3 feet long with that big tail. So you can imagine how enormous this tree is. We've been monitoring nests for several years now, and generally we're finding that productivity is good. There's lots of babies leaving the nest. But this year we actually got a call, and we had a nest tree that had fallen down. It was a tree we weren't actually monitoring, and members of the community contacted us, which was really promising on one hand because they knew who we were, but there was sad news as well because one of the parents was killed as the tree fell. The chick remarkably survived. And you can tell this is a chick because the tail is relatively short, and it's got soft facial features, and it looks kind of vulnerable and cute. And they do that. And this chick, although it wasn't injured, the team took it upon themselves to name this chick Stitch. It didn't have any stitches, but that's what they went with that, so we're okay. We're very lucky that for Stitch, there was another nest nearby with a single chick in it that was of the same age. This is just a couple of weeks before fledging. So we fostered Stitch into this other nest, which was a great relief for us. Now, to track survival, that's really, really difficult because you can see here the macaws have got this enormous beak and they can tear things to pieces, and they generally do. But they also fly, unlike penguins. And so you need these transmitters to be really light. And so we're trying to track these birds, and it's really quite tricky. And we've managed to track Stitch, and this is Stitch 2 weeks after leaving the nest, and he'd survived. And actually, just a few weeks ago, Noalia, who's on our team, found Stitch again, and so that's Stitch five and a bit months from leaving the nest. So that's basically he's made. He's good. If he survived that long, then he's going to be in good shape. And it's this monitoring of survival that's really important. We've got 4 birds that have fledged in nests and stuck around in Costa Rica. We know they're doing good. But the 6 others, we don't actually know where they've gone. We suspect they've gone to Nicaragua, which is just 12 miles from that hill in the distance. And that's easy reach for a macaw, but we can't actually track them at the moment in Nicaragua. This is Noalia, and she's out. She and Mario, who's actually I didn't mention Mario was a WCN scholar, is a WCN scholar. They've been out tracking these birds, and But there's these birds that we don't know where they've gone, and we need to understand that better. So we've started a research collaboration with a professor at New Mexico State University, and we're looking at using GPS technology, because that will give us better information. But as I mentioned, macaws are pretty destructive. These units cost about $2,000 each, and there's a good chance many of them will be just destroyed by macaws. So if you feel lucky, this is a project for you. When we monitor the parrots and we're looking at their survival, we're also getting data on the way that they use the landscape. Where do they go and when do they go there? And they're not just moving around the landscape willy-nilly. They're commuting to trees like this incredible mountain almond tree when it's producing food a few weeks after it's produced these beautiful flowers. I can imagine that, well, I know there's lots of restaurants in San Francisco, but I'm quite certain that you don't visit all of them. You visit the ones that you like, and you visit them a lot more often than many of the others. And when we think of the macaw, we think of them using the forest, the whole forest, but they don't. They use certain trees. And these are ancient trees, and they're incredibly important to the survival of the macaw. So we need to think about the trees and protect the trees, because the mountain almond tree, 9 out of 10 were cut down. And so the trees themselves are critically endangered. And these are just incredible beings in their own right, with thousands of other species that live on them. The forest is just so important. And for me, that is where we have got to go. And actually, we've just had a bit of a setback, because we'd made an application to secure funding to buy a parcel of land. Many of you know I was very, very excited about securing some forest for the parrots and starting an initiative to build a reserve, which I would hope would be a community asset. Unfortunately, we didn't get that funding. So it's a setback. We're going to have to rethink what we're doing. I've already been talking with Rosa Mira and others who've done land acquisition, and learning from them and sort of getting some new ideas of how we might move this forward. It is something that's really important to me, because I think it is the idea of a reserve that becomes this community asset is something where we can bring value to the local communities from the forest. And that's really one of the most important pieces of this puzzle, and Pamela's going to tell you about this important last piece.
Well, yes, the last piece of the puzzle is people. If we want to safeguard the future of macaws, we must work with people. But people are complex and a little bit complicated sometimes. Here, an example. My boyfriend used to kill all the spiders at home. And after having a very serious conversation, you may imagine how, he decided not to kill the spiders at home, and now he's taking the spiders and releasing it outside. So this situation made me feel, and actually taught me, that people may change their behavior toward nature. And it depends on different life experiences. We know that we work in an area where what is one of the poorest in Costa Rica. And we cannot expect having a real impact in conservation if there is people that is thinking in what to eat that day. Just take a minute and imagine. You are a mother, you have no job, and you have kids to feed. You will not have room in your mind for thinking about macaw conservation, right? So we took this problem and we found it a solution. Last year, we started the Women Render Project. With this project, local women from the little town in Costa Rica were monitoring great macaw nests. It was great. I really have the opportunity of seeing how this project touched the ladies. And actually, they came to me with the idea of start growing trees for the great-winged macaw. For us, that was a huge opportunity, and we really wanted to support the ladies. I can remember the call. This is Maria Elena, is one of the ladies that are working with us, and she called me for proposing me the idea. And I can remember very well that call, Because at the end, I was thinking like, wow, in conservation, we are normally talk about how important it is to change or improve people's attitudes and behaviors. And I was just in front of an example of that happening. That impressed me a lot. And after some months of big effort, in last July, we inaugurated our Titor tree house, tree nursery. And now, Justina, Elena, Elvira, Heidi, Sujen, and Dendry are growing 20 species of trees that are important for the great green macaw conservation. Thank you. But these women want to go further, and they decide to establish an educational project in their community. So now they are going to school and they are given environmental education. I just learned 2 weeks ago that Gendry had a dream. She wanted to go to the university, but she didn't have the opportunity. And she wanted to go to the university because she wants to become a teacher. And then I understood why she is super inspired when she is teaching the kids. So that's the kind of situation where make you realize that you are having an impact on macaws, but you are also having an impact on people. For us, the project is important. It's very important. We truly believe that it will have an impact on macaws, and it's having an impact on macaws. But we have to talk about security. So here, Gendry will tell you about her experience with Macaw Recovery Network and the project in the field.
My name is Gendry Siles. I am from the Bocatapa community, and I am 28 years old. The Community Women Rangers project was born from the wild gray-green macaw nest monitoring. Since that project captivated me and the other rangers so much, we wanted to see how we could establish a nursery. I once had the experience of going to a conservation field trip when I was in the school. A Costa Rican university took the kids to a reforestation activity in Boca San Carlos. We were very excited to go, but it was like an illusion and it didn't happen again. I would like more stability of the job because it's the only fixed income we are getting at the moment. A bigger property with more space, bigger infrastructure to have greater capacity for more species and more trees.
Rural communities in Costa Rica have been seeing nonprofits come and go. And in this video, you can see how Gendry is worried about security. We truly believe that the Women Ranger Project has a big impact in the macaws and in the forest. And we also believe that these ladies have potential, but they cannot realize their potential if they are worried of what is happening in the next 6 months. We want to guarantee that security, and we are already looking for ways of making this project self-sustainable, but it's gonna take time, and also we have to work in improving the rangers' skills. With $6,000, we can support Gendry for a year. And with $80,000, we can support the entire project for the same amount of time. I am convinced that we can make this happen, and I'm super committed with this project. I hope that together we can make that possible.
Excellent. Isn't she amazing? Security is a basic need. It's on Maslow's hierarchy, it's just above Wi-Fi. In July this year, where I live, there was unprecedented rains all month. The night before I took this video, where I'm having my coffee before walking past, there'd been 11 inches of rain in 9 hours. That's half of San Francisco's annual rainfall in 9 hours. There are landslides all around the area where I live. And it was shocking. It was really terrifying, actually. What we are seeing here is a situation where a rainforest, which in its very name has evolved to handle rain, is getting so much rain that the roots that bind the soil together can't hold on. So forested slopes, not cleared slopes for cattle pasture, but forested slopes are letting go. And in a world where we're having a changing climate, and this is going to be a more frequent event, we're not going to see it's the stress of it, really. We're not going to see these cliffs, these hillsides recover. We're looking at ecosystem collapse. That's terrifying, because the rainforest is just so important, not just for the macaws, but for all of these other species. And I look at this, and when I walk my dog, I see landslides everywhere, and it really hit home for me. And in this moment, I was a climate refugee, the most privileged white male climate refugee you've seen, but I wasn't going to stay in that house. The UN Environment Programme recognizes that forest protection is one of the best nature-based climate solutions. And we've got to just protect this forest. It's incredible. And all these ancient trees. When we protect the macaws and we protect the forest for the macaws, we're protecting all of the biodiversity that's there. It's what Charlie was speaking about earlier. We're addressing the biodiversity loss crisis. We're addressing the climate crisis. We're helping ourselves. When we do that, we're protecting a future for the planet. I'm here because I love parrots. And I'm absolutely convinced when we have thriving parrots, we'll have a thriving planet. We can't do that on our own. It's a team effort, and we want you on the team. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was, why don't you move over here a little bit? That was very inspiring and a little bit depressing.
Sorry.
But it's ultimately by seeing what's going on in the field and how you're working to address it that inspires all of us to get involved and help. So we do have some time for some questions. I've got these brutal lights, so I can't see your faces, but I can see hands up in the air. So I'll take some questions right down here, please. And we have a couple mic runners, so wait till the mic comes to you so everyone else can hear the question here.
So you ended with ecoclimate collapse?
Ecosystem collapse.
System collapse, and then I'm thinking, well, how is the rest of this going to work if where you're living doesn't have a future? How will we take care of the macaws?
Sorry to leave it in a sort of confused and depressing state. Those are the steepest slopes, and but there's a lot of other areas, and if we're going to address that, we've got to protect what's left. And then we also do reforestation with the women rangers. We're doing reforestation and trying to repair or recover some of these areas as well. So I believe there is hope. I know we can bring populations of parrots back. I've been involved with that. My first experience with parrots was a population of 12 on the island of Mauritius, and now there's 600 of them. So the mechanics of it is well understood. We just need the resources to make it happen. And I think we're spiraling downwards, but we can turn that around.
Yeah, Michael.
Just a sort of addendum onto that.
Oh, let me get a mic for you.
Just to an addendum onto that question, which is, I think, your desire to have a larger refuge for more land. And though this wasn't realized recently, that would also, I mean, with some of these other environmental challenges with these slopes coming down in the rainforest would give you also a much larger expanse of land to protect I certainly recognize how and how poignant and upsetting it is to see that kind of effect of climate change. But I also think that it's so easy to, I totally understand your question. But again, the more optimistic way that I look at it is the trying to help or to expand the range in order to have more land to save the parrots, I guess.
I think for me, it made the importance of protecting the remaining forest just ever so more urgent. And just making sure that we don't lose any more of these ancient trees and everything that they bring. I mean, we know from science that forests can recover, but it doesn't quite, it takes centuries to recover to what it was. And then you've got a mountain almond tree that lives for 650 years. If we can plant mountain almond trees, the mountain almond actually grows very well in the nursery, but we're losing 650 years. Whereas if we can just protect what's there now, that's so important and will help us stop this downward spiral, and then we can reverse it, we can turn it around. And I'm confident we can, it's possible. We're building our team through Pamela's work. We're expanding the number of people that see things that we do. So I do think there's hope.
Thank you for that. Right here? A mic coming over?
No,
Oh,
here is
sorry.
the
I'm
question.
sorry.
Oh, hey.
How many species of macaws and parrots do you support?
We're currently working with 2 species of macaws, the scarlet macaw and the great green macaw. But there are 19 species left in the world. And you put me on this, if I'm putting myself on the spot, I think about 8 of them are endangered. And we actually help, we're working with other organizations in other countries to help them. But we're based in Costa Rica with those the 2 great greens, the 2 species. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, back here.
Could you talk a little bit about the ownership status of the land you're trying to protect? I'm trying to compare it to the U.S. where there are national forests. And is it all private? Is part of it public? Does the government have a role in helping to protect these species?
Most of the area where the great green macaw is found and where they're breeding is privately owned. And we actually, Pamela, something we didn't have time to include, is Pamela's doing great work with nest ambassadors and trying to inspire pride and build connection with the farmers that own land where the macaw nests are found. But there isn't large areas of community-owned land or large areas of government-owned land where we're working. It's pretty much all private. Costa Rica, one of the challenges is Costa Rica is kind of expensive because it's secure. That's why you've got multinationals in there clearing areas for pineapple. You can buy land a lot cheaper in Nicaragua, but you might lose it. So it's a safe bet. But yeah, it's private. Generally, the dynamic we're seeing, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the owners are sort of old-timers who love the forest, and their adult children have moved to the city, and they don't really want to be in the forest. So they don't want to see it cut down, but they don't really want it either. So there's an interesting dynamic which over the next 10 or 20 years is going to change things quite, and it'd be nice to be in a position to capitalize on that. Marge.
When you were so when you were showing images of the forest, what does that represent? I'm trying to picture, national forests or other types of protected areas, and then sort of the potential encroachment, as you were talking about, of pineapple plantations or other things. So, what do those images represent? What are we looking at?
Yeah, that last drone shot was actually at the edge of a national park. That's one area that, but it's actually a little bit upland. But actually the lowland areas where the great green macaws are found, and one of the photo with Noalia in the tower with the radio tracker, that's a private reserve. And I won't say it's a network. There are lots of privately owned reserves, but there's no coordination between them at the moment, no significant coordination between them. And I think that's where we can play a role and bring a direction to those individuals. When I talk about a community asset and I think about a reserve that's 20,000 hectares or 50,000 hectares, I don't think we're going to own all of that, and I think that would be unmanageable. But it's like let's connect all these people and let's bring them together and lead that, and all agree to certain things, like how we're going to do things, and then it becomes a thing. As a tourist, you might only go somewhere and be in a hectare of forest, but you're attracted to it because it's part of this huge reserve. Like Monteverde is the best known in Costa Rica. So there are lots of these little pockets of private, not just little actually, but pockets of privately owned land, but they're all autonomous, and we want to kind of bring them together with a cohesive vision.
Thank you. Here.
I think my question is related to all of these, about the acquisition that you tried to do where you weren't granted the funds. So what was that request? How much was it for? To whom did you request the money, and is it still on the table, or is the land no longer accessible for acquisition?
Always try and see the positive on things. I think it may help us because it gives me an opportunity to go back to the landowner and say, can we bring your price down a little bit? And he's open to that. The budget for that project was 2.4 million. That was a 5-year budget, because one of the catches is you buy the land, but then you actually tie your organization in knots because you haven't got the resources to manage it. So we made sure that we put in resources for outreach, which is the best way to protect the forest. Speaking with other land managers, that's what I learned. We need rangers on the ground. We need a pickup, and we need another pickup within 5 years because it's so awful to drive around there that it just kills cars. So it was a significant budget. That was for 3 parcels of land from the same owner. We're looking at, Sarah will kill me if I say this out loud because we haven't really agreed on this yet, but the way that I see this going, and especially having talked to others here, other conservationists, we'll try and buy one of those parcels first, and that's more like $600,000 for the parcel, but then we need some management costs. And then what Rosamira has told me is, once you get at the table with land, and you can demonstrate to supporters that you can manage that land, the snowball effect takes on, and you can talk to other landowners, you can raise funds, and then go bigger. Maybe it's really unlike me that I would try and bite off more than I can chew on the first go. So maybe I did that.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the hard work you're doing. I've seen it on the ground, and I know you're quite literally in the mud. So
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And high up in the trees. I was wondering, what are your the most outstanding opportunities and the greatest needs coming forward?
For sure.
For the Recovery Network, and thank you.
Thank you. I think the best investment we can make is this idea that we're talking about, Pamela's talking about with security, and wanting to be able to give these women, the women rangers, that the notion, not just the notion, be able to say to them that we've got them covered on a longer time horizon than just a grant funding, and that we can build up some security for them, because then they'll be even more committed to the project, and they will. I think that will just blossom in ways we don't even yet imagine. So that's definitely a key area of our work. This land idea is something that I really want to work out. And the thing is, I think we need resources to do that, to have somebody to do that, because I'm trying to keep all the balls in the air and run things, but we really need somebody who's dedicated to that project, who can drive that forward. And that's definitely a need that I see going forward. And then with the parrots, I mean, we're developing this tracking technology stuff. That's a whole research project. One of our big challenges, and I think for many of the conservationists, is transportation and vehicles. And actually, it's really not very sexy. But in order for these incredible, hardworking field biologists to get out and do their work, they need to get to places, and you can't do that when we've had Land Rovers. My Land Rover's fantastic, but the Land Rovers we've tried on the project have been a pain in the neck, and that's really hampered things. And so you need to actually buy basically more modern vehicles that the team don't have to worry about. So that's a big cost for us. So, yeah.
Sam, what would that cost?
A decent used pickup is about $45,000. We've been trying to work with pickups that are about $25,000, and it's just a nightmare. It just slows us down in ways, just for me, it's like, I drive a Land Rover, there's a little problem, we can fix it, I can fix it. But the team, we can't expect them to be field biologists and mechanics. And so, we need to give them reliable transportation. I was talking with Colleen about this, because Colleen's a big Land Rover fan, but she accepts, we need a Toyota in the field, because, did you ever see a broken down Toyota?
Over here somewhere, please.
I was wondering, first, thank you for the inspirational talk.
Thank you so much.
Wondering if carbon credits play a role in the forest over there.
Yes. Yeah, there is. That definitely will be a way to ensure that when we secure land, that we can that will be a way to cover costs. And I think making it equitable, making it accessible for other landowners is something that's in my mind as well, because this is kind of, even for me, carbon credits is just a minefield that I don't really understand. And I think it's a little bit of the Wild West even now. I don't think it's really structured. So we can't expect a farmer to understand that and to get that value. So it's like, well, that's exactly the kind of direction we need to go in. But we need capacity in order to get there. I can't wrap my head around that and do the other things. Pamela can't wrap her head around that and work with the Women Rangers and the others. So that's where we've got to go. But it's definitely a tremendous opportunity, both in terms of the forest that we protect and the forest that we restore. When we're planting trees, there's carbon that we're going to be assimilating there.
And this is a great opportunity of how to demonstrate how WCN works, because this is a common need around understanding carbon credits and monetizing it for conservation work. WCN is dedicating resources to figuring that out on behalf of the conservationists. So I hadn't shared that with you, but
great to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, any other questions? I have one more. Okay, Michael. One second.
Great.
Pamela, you when I saw you the other day, you spoke about the farmers program, in which you brought landowners together, many of whom don't know one another, and the kind of tell the audience a little bit about that experience and why you did it and what you thought the results were.
Thank you very much. That gave me the opportunity of explaining a little bit more about the Ambassador project. With them, if you have a great green macaw nest, you're special, and we really want to share that feeling with the landowners. So now we are visiting them twice per year and giving some updates about the project. But this year, for the first time, because of COVID, this was the first year that we can do it. We bring all together and we share our experiences with the landowners. We share all the project that we are doing, and we really want to make them feel that they are really special and their properties are special for having a great green macaw nest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Over here.
Thank you. It's a beautiful place. Been there. One of the things that bothered me was the traffic and the diesel smells. And you mentioned that a used pickup is $45,000, which that's a little high, I would think, for most people. I want to give you some hope that I've been watching the electric vehicle market, and California just passed a resolution to ban the sale of gas vehicles. So there is hope on the horizon. There's a lot of people involved in making the world a cleaner place. I've seen the air get cleaner in Los Angeles. Right. So I just wanted to share that with you, more than have a question.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, over here.
Costa Rica, as you said at the beginning of your talk, is a stable place, which is why companies want to come there versus Nicaragua. There's a lot of Americans that are retiring to Costa Rica. What's the government policy, and is there a government policy in terms of incentives, particularly taxation? For example, in California, if you donate land, a conservation easement, there's a tax benefit to the landowner. is there any such applicable or similar kind of legislation that could be applied for land acquisition and helping to bring about the kinds of safety and conservation networks that you're talking about?
Right, yeah. First of all, you're absolutely right. Costa Rica is wonderful, and you should all come and visit. Not all at once. It is possible to do conservation easements. That structure does exist, but I've only recently learned about there's different tricks and trades. We have a board member who knows how to. There's ways to make your land contribution a donation and things like that, and different ways to do that. That's not really something I've got my head around, and I'm not sure if Costa Rica's actually there and has those structures in place. But we're definitely sort of putting that in the puzzle of our strategy for habitat protection. But I don't know the ins and outs of it at this moment, so I can't give you a full answer, basically, I'm afraid. But I'll make sure I can by the next time I see you.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm going to wrap up now, but I want to give Sam and Pamela a big round of applause, and especially for Pamela. This is her first Expo, first time on stage. She was a little bit nervous, and she did a fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Well done.
Thank you.
And
a couple logistical. You can stay. You can go. Either way. A couple logistical announcements for Wi-Fi. It's called Club Guest, and the password is "Be in the Know." It's all lowercase, no spaces. Be in the know, which is why you come to the Expo, right? To be in the know. So Be in the Know Club Guest. That's the Wi-Fi password. The next session will start in about 20 minutes. We have 2 sessions going on. Downstairs, we'll have a panel on One Health, and that's going to have the Conservation Through Public Health Gorilla Program in Uganda, the Ethiopian Wolf Program, and the Andean Cat Alliance serving on a panel. And then upstairs, we'll have a talk by Owasso Lions, followed by a talk by the Nyasa Lion Program. And I know what you're thinking, Charlie, I want to go to both. Why are you doing 2 separate ones? I didn't make the program. Go blame someone else. And then, so that'll go from 11:30 to 12:30. Lunch will then be at 12:30. It'll be, you'll grab, I don't know what it is, boxes, or there'll be something downstairs. But then you can go anywhere to eat, and I highly recommend going up to the 4th floor. You have to take the elevator to get there, but it's spectacular views over the bay. The Fleet Week and the air show is going on, so that I'll see you all up there. So thank you so much. Cheers. Well done.
I'm sweating. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.